everybody. Rabbi Bill Hamilton here. And it's great to be back at Parsha Ponderings with Rabbi EBC, Rabbi David Starr. Great to see you guys.
Great to be with you.
Hi, everybody.
So we conclude the book of Numbers this week with a double portion. It's also Rosh Chodesh for the month of Av, so we're not far from Tisha B'Av, a week from Saturday night. And what's fascinating to me every year is that Moses, having announced his successor and laid hands on him in the prior portion, actually is confronted with a crisis in which he actually demonstrates the strongest leadership in the face of challenge in the back and forth with the children of Israel of his entire Torah career, his entire prophetic career. 2.5 of the tribes want to settle on the other side of the Jordan, which, again, from Moses' perspective, is the worst imaginable situation. It's something that he doesn't get to do, is to cross into the Jordan. That's what the spies wanted to do, and it could be a civil war. It could be a complete catastrophe. It could be a complete breakdown in trust and future and everything else. Don't forget, this is the next generation. These are the folks coming into the land. The 40 years has passed. But Moses does something remarkable. He is able to rebuild the trust. How does he do it? He confronts them head on, saying, "You're worse than the spies generation." They clarify that, no, actually, we don't intend to not cross. We intend to cross, and then we just want to be able to settle here later. We want to take care of our cattle and then our kids. And Moses reorders their priorities. He says, family first, then finances. And once he then says, if you do all this stuff as you promise, then it'll be okay. And somehow he's able to get them to come forward with their intent, to clarify their purpose and their motivation, and to get their priorities reordered. And I think that this is, again, a remarkable moment. So I'm sort of tipping my hat, but I'm curious what my colleagues think about the idea that this happens so late in his career, and even after we would have thought he'd have been kind of lame duck at this point.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable on two accounts. One is that, that he has already kind of not resigned his leadership, but he's certainly appointed the next generation of leadership. And so, like you say, he could be seen as this lame duck. And on the other hand, I almost feel like it's because of that aspect of his trajectory of leadership that he's able to confront them with such honesty and to be able to be he's not necessarily worried about kind of the political fallout or anything like that so many of us in our careers and in moments of leadership have kind of pulling at us. If I say this thing, what's going to come back to me, or how is that going to impact my long-term professional standing or whatever. And at this point he says, you know what, like I just need to put it out there. I just need to say my piece. And he's able to make, somewhat of a radical statement. I mean, in terms of reprioritizing, family over economics or finances is a hugely radical thing to say. And, you think about people in contemporary leadership who would say that and who would do that still has a risk to it, even in our contemporary context. Yet he's able to say it somewhat freely because perhaps he doesn't worry about the consequences or the fallout. And that's pretty liberating and a powerful model, I think.
I love that, Elizabeth. I think that, you're speaking to the reality that there are different kinds of leadership. Some of that's a function of personality. Some of that's a function of setting. Some of that's a function of the nature of organizations. I mean, I think if we were here with people who, on the one hand, work inside of a political system, elected officials, most obviously, as opposed to people who work in social action, they're organizers. they're working outside, they could talk a lot about this. There's a way in which compromise, I mean, President Kennedy talked a lot about this. There's a way in which a democratic system that is built upon compromise is actually ultimately more effective in terms of including people. On the other hand, it runs the risk of a lot of halfway measures. It's also a lot of times a cover, as you implied, for a certain level of cowardice and people who don't really want to face up to their inner voice. On the other hand, the prophetic voice is oftentimes the losing voice. There's something very appealing about standing up and shouting at the wind, but you're not necessarily going to accomplish a whole lot. Right. So I think, this is what is so fascinating about this whole question of, yeah, okay, I can figure out what it is I want to accomplish, but ultimately the question is, how am I going to get there?
Yeah.
And I think by definition, that's a much harder question. And I think that's one, as you suggested, that's one of the wonderful things about reading the Torah as a kind of a biography of Moshe, because you're seeing his evolution here, whether it's a learning curve piece, whether it's a developmental things in terms of his age. So it's a fabulous thing to think about.
Nice. Yasher Koach to both of you. And in many ways, it actually readies him to become Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, which will occupy the entirety of the Torah's fifth book with him in that role. So as we think about the power of these lessons for our world today, may the Shabbos to come inform and instill some really important ways in which how we make our way forward with what we value and carry that as a light of inspiration for others.
Amen.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.